So, hey guys, welcome to my presentation for my semester-long game project. It goes by the title Dungeon Elimination Kryption. This has been a lot of fun to work on. It's been a lot of challenge to work on, but it's pretty awesome. So, first off, what is Dungeon Elimination Kryption, or decryption as I like to call it? Well, basically it's Quake in the dark. It's a fast-paced arena shooter. The location that you're set in is dark, so you need to use various lighting mechanics to reveal your opponent and go in for the kill. Conversely, this also means that there's some stealth involved, but we'll get into that later. So, obviously the most important part of this game is going to be the lighting system. Players are invisible by default. You have to light them up in order to see them. In addition to that, performing certain actions yourself can reveal your location. So, for an example here, the player has a built-in flare option. Right now, that's my just basic way of letting players see other players. Right-clicking shoots out a sphere, and as long as enemies are within that sphere, they are visible. Also, firing your weapon creates a visible bullet, which can reveal your location as well, meaning that if you do shoot your gun, other people can see where you are and then try to retaliate by sending out another flare in your direction and trying to spot you. Initially, I tried to make the rendering system a little bit more robust. Currently, it's just volumetric based. As long as the player is within the light volume, they're visible. Obviously, that's not how light works, since if someone's backlit, you can still see their silhouette. I tried messing around with shaders for a bit, and I got kind of close to something that I was looking for. This is the demo of what I would like the system to look like. But as you can see, it's kind of buggy, didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to, and, deadlines, this was the one part that I unfortunately had to cut. But I was still pretty happy with the volumetric system. I feel like that worked well enough, and players seemed to like that, and weren't really upset that this wasn't in the game. So, obviously, that gets into our game loop here. The concept is that the player spawns in, and then they go into a search phase. You don't know where the other player is, so that leads to two outcomes. Either A, you find the other player, in which case you kind of have the advantage. You can choose to do what you want to do here, or you are found by the other player. And in both of these scenarios, that leads to a fight. That fight can lead multiple different ways. In this case, the two pretty much biggest examples are a player retreats, so that player leaves the interaction, they go off somewhere else, maybe they need to reload, maybe they're going to heal, at which case that would loop back to the search state, right? Both players are now looking for each other, and of course, that they're either found, fight the other person, they get into a fight, and players can have different advantages or disadvantages depending on how much health or ammo that they have. So that's the retreat phase. Other ways, the other player dies. Now, depending on the game mode, this can obviously be different ways. If you're playing Elimination, that's a point, maybe. So I've got a handful of game modes. The one that I did in playtesting was mostly just a free-for-all to get the basic lighting mechanics working and making sure that the combat was interesting. But long-term plans are an actual more structured, maybe best out of three. You have to kill your opponent 3 times in order to win. Maybe there's another objective, like King of the Hill, that could introduce new lighting mechanics, capture the flag. Obviously, there's many different ways to take this because it's the system you can pretty much build off of this idea, but the idea is there. And in playtest, the free-for-all seems to do pretty well. Players did give feedback that they wanted that to maybe change a little bit, which, if I take this project forward, which I most definitely will be, that's probably going to be my most important gameplay, whatever. But for the playtest for this class, everything worked. The anchor in this scenario is going to be your player HP. HP is just the most important resource since, dying makes you lose. Not dying seems pretty important. So HP is your most important resource in this case. Ammunition sort of builds off of HP because it directly interacts with the opponent's HP. You shoot a bullet, you're spending a resource in order to attempt to lower your opponent's health. Information can also be seen as a resource here. That's less numerically based because, if you're found or the other player finds you, that's information, right? You can view that as a resource. And then, of course, you use that information, you're using that resource to try and affect their HP value by killing them. So there's a handful of different player actions that are available in the prototype right now. Obviously, shooting both bullets and flares is in the game. You can kill the other player. Players have working health functions. There's a basic dash mechanic that I've thrown in here. It's not super robust at the moment, but it's a nice little movement option that I chose because I wanted, a vertical jump doesn't really make too much sense in a game where the map is mostly flat, so being able to jump in and out of cover or in reaction to being seen seemed like a pretty fun idea. But basic systems. Again, we've got the game resources, health, ammo, and information. Players have a 30 health to go off of, and the weapon that I gave them for playtesting was a gun that had 3 shots that did 10 damage each. So theoretically, if you hit all 3 of your shots, you could kill an enemy player immediately. I want this game to be burst damage because I don't want to get too frustrating with seeing an opponent, shooting at them, and then not killing them and having to find them all over again. There's still room for error, obviously, so if you miss one of your 3 shots, you still have to find them again, but skilled players, when seeing their opponent, will be able to act on it and have a decent chance of killing them, right? So, again, high burst damage, I want lots of damage in here. It's not in this version of the game that I did for playtesting, but there is the ability to heal. It's not implemented, and that's would be in later builds. So, you shoot a player. If we go back to the our game loop here. Players can retreat, meaning that they would have the option to heal, which would put them at a disadvantage because you can't fight back while you're healing, and because many actions reveal a location, healing would be one of those things where, like, okay, maybe there's a small light or something so you're visible during it, which gives some counterplay options. But for the most part, these are the mechanics these are the resources that were available in the initial playtest, and they seem to work fine. I think people had fun with the burst damage, people had fun with, the information, and I had, based on my playtest, I saw that different people had different strategies with how they would do that. Some people would hide in a corner and wait for other people to give themselves away. Some people would run around the map very aggressively, shooting light flares everywhere, trying to see, and, they all had varying degrees of success, but it's interesting to see that people took these three resources and were able to come up with strategies around them. So where's the fun? Again, I talked a little bit about how players, had fun with this. People seem to think that it was pretty enjoyable. From my perspective, the most interesting part here is the mystery and surprise, right? You don't know where the other player is, and there's that little, like, oh, there they are, when you suddenly find them, or when you found yourself. There's scarcity of information, because, normally we take being able to see the other guy in our shooter games for granted, but that's not something that's here. And I think that that's pretty unique. Most first-person shooters don't actually have, like, stealth mechanics, or at least not, like, really interesting stealth mechanics. Some games will give you, like, invisibility, or, usually it's just invisibility, or, not showing up on, like, a player HUD or something. But this game, like, it's built around stealth, and the stealth ties in with your movement and ties in with your decision-making, so, again, that scarcity of information ties with the stealth, which I think is something that not a lot of first-person games have the luxury of being able to dive into. We're going to go through this quickly. This is just my style, so the style idea, which wasn't implemented in the prototype, unfortunately. It would have just taken a lot of work to implement my art assets. But a pixelated, very bold color aesthetic. Here I've kind of, like, started off with some of my UI elements. I decided that I wanted a chunk-based ammo system. If you've ever played Hunt Showdown, that game uses circles to represent how many bullets are in your gun as opposed to numbers, which I think is a lot more interesting. kind of explored with the layout here. You've got your HP bar on the left, ammo on the right. On the top, you've got a UI element that would show how visible the player is, so that ties into that visibility mechanic. In this case, I don't know why the background is white. That's weird. But this is a health bar that I came up with. This one was, I've got the pixelated aesthetic I'm looking for. In this case, this one was made by referencing some old clip art images and then tearing them apart and putting them back together again, and then I got this, and I think that this looks really cool. Similar thing I did here with this, so this would be that visibility sphere that you saw earlier on the UI. It lights up as the player becomes more lit up. This is one of Galileo's sketches of the moon. I took got it off of the Wikipedia Commons, and then I edited it, threw it back together. This is the title. You've already seen this at the beginning. This one's just a free font that I loaded into a pixel art editor, and then the program automatically turned it into pixel art. And this came out really well for 2 clicks worth of effort. It was crazy, but yeah, if you use Sprite or you haven't used Sprite before, I would recommend it for this type of work. But I was really happy with this turned out. So yeah, again, wasn't able to get any of my cool art stuff in the playtests. I would have really liked to do that, but I'm sort of reteaching myself Unity and just trying to make sure I'm checking all the boxes for playtest, and getting the art in it implemented, sadly, did not make the cut. But yeah, that's the game. It's been a lot of fun to work on. If you would like to play the demo, you can check out my itch.io page. It'll be on there somewhere. Again, demo's pretty rudimentary. There's not a whole lot going on. It's more of a tech demo than a game demo. And multiplayer functionality sadly doesn't work because I haven't set up anything for dedicated servers. And it worked for the playtest. But going forward, there might be more updates to this project. I might actually be joining another team here soon next semester, so we'll see if this gets more attention or not. But either way, thanks for watching, and I hope all of your projects went well as well. Have a good one.